is Shakyamuni Buddha. Paying homage or paying respect to his qualities. So you think about the qualities that he has and had, the tenacity, the strength, the 6 perfections, having realized all of the Lam Rim, then this is the path that we want to take, that we want to actualize. So we're using Shakyamuni Buddha as our inspiration. So we'll do twice in Tibetan, once in English. Sangye Chodan Soki Chognam La Janjo Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Dropar Shog Sangye Chodan Soki Chognam La Janjo Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Dropar Shog. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. The 4 immeasurables. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness which is without suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from both attachment and hatred, holding some close and others distant. The 7-limb prayer. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence, and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of others to the great enlightenment. And the mandala. Saji Puki Joshing Metog Dramri Rablingji Ni Degen Badi Sangye Jingdu Mite Uar Gidro Konam Dak Jing La Chu Parshok Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. So, welcome everybody, and we're talking or discussing the path to enlightenment. And last week I introduced the Lam Rim. Some people thought I was going to finish all the subjects last week, but that's not how the Lam Rim works. So we're going gradually through the path. And as I said last week, not talking about it in a brief way, also not talking about it in the longest possible way, because then that could take years, but trying to talk about the experience of Lam Rim and how it relates to our life, how we can use it in everyday life. So last week, it was really validating the Lam Rim, saying to you, this is where the Lam Rim comes from, as far as it comes from Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings, but it's not exactly the way Shakyamuni Buddha taught. So this was the Lam Rim was something developed for Tibet, and then since the Tibetans came out of Tibet, has been translated and then utilized by us, by Westerners, to understand the path. So as I said last week, then the value, I think, for me, of understanding the Lam Rim, the progression of the Lam Rim, is that any teachings that you take, then you can put it in the context of the Lam Rim. If you don't know the Lam Rim, then you're taking teachings on impermanence and you don't know where it fits. You know it's Dharma, but you don't quite know where it fits. Or you're taking teachings on suffering. So where does suffering fit into all the Dharma teachings? So I really like the Lam Rim because, you know, as a Westerner, we have a mind that tends to want to go in a sort of straight direction, isn't it? You know, we want to start here and we want to finish here. So the Lam Rim really suits us in that way, in that if we start to deviate from the path, then we know we're going off the path, and then we need to come back to the path. You know, you can read books on any subject of the Dharma, but then because of the Lam Rim, you're enabled to put it into context. So that's what we're doing. Then I said last week, because I'd already taught how to meditate and something about the mind, that I wouldn't be talking about this in the Lam Rim, because next month I continue with how to meditate. So that will be on Saturdays, and then Sundays will be the Lam Rim. I also said last time that I wouldn't be discussing the guru, that we will leave the guru till the very end, because perhaps it's too early for people who are new to the Lam Rim or new to Dharma. I think they may not want to hear about the guru or may not understand the relevance of the guru. And I think even for older students, it's something similar, you know, that sometimes we just don't understand the relevance or the benefit. So I'm leaving that to the end. So where we are now is in the section called Leisure and Fortune. Gosh, I did a lot of reading. This is subsumed as Leisure and Fortune, 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. At the end of the teaching, somewhere, I don't know where, but somewhere that you can find it on our website with the video, I presume, will be the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments. So if you haven't heard them before, there will be, can't say a printout, an upload of those 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. So recognizing leisure and fortune. Leisure and fortune. Here, you need to be careful that you don't think that the idea is to be arrogant. So we're not approaching this idea of precious human rebirth, wow, and all the other problematic states as pooh, you know, like rubbish. I think you have to be very careful with that it's not a state of superiority, even though it is from the point of view of Dharma, from the point of view of practicing Dharma, wow, how incredible. But we're not looking down on everybody else and saying, oh, look at you down there, pathetic, how sad. We're not using it like that. So it's to understand that you have created incredible causes and conditions in order to experience this precious human rebirth. If you don't use this precious human rebirth in a Dharma way, and let's face it, it's difficult to practice Dharma, if you don't cause a future human rebirth, then what will you cause? So if you don't accumulate merit, if you're not purifying in this life all the negativities that you've created from beginningless time, then at the time of death, according to the strongest habit, the strongest action that you keep repeating, or the strongest thought that you keep repeating over and over, then if it's a self-cherishing, self-grasping thought, then that's going to ripen at the time of death, and then perhaps will cause a negative rebirth. So I also don't want you to take this as a fear-mongering exercise. You know, I used to go to church when I was a kid. I was in the church choir, and he wasn't a priest, but the vicar, he was very keen on hell. And so he used to sort of point, you know, because we were on the side, the choir, and so we got it first. But we were all 8, 9, 10 years of age with very sweet voices, I would like to say. And, you know, so he sort of pointed us and say, and you're all going to hell. I guess you don't point at the people in the, not the audience, but the congregation. I guess you don't point to them because maybe they don't give much money if they all think they're going to hell. But he used to point to us, and I'd sort of say, you know, I'm going to hell. But what have I done? You know, I'm only 8 years of age. Why am I going to hell? So not to take it in that way of sin, that you're a really bad person and you're going to hell, to understand that there are beings in hell and they are suffering. So then later on, because you've meditated on these freedoms, that you're not participating in these terrible situations right now, but you have been, and you could be. And so you recognize the suffering of all those beings in those terrible situations, and then later compassion can arise. But at the moment, compassion won't arise because we haven't even got to compassion unless you naturally have compassion. And when I say hell, you know, all your compassion arises and you feel like crying because you think how awful that they're experiencing that. So that was just a bit of a warning. Leisure and fortune, we're able to practice Dharma. And so what comprises an optimum human rebirth? We have a tremendous opportunity, an unbelievable opportunity to achieve our temporary goals and our ultimate goals. Because it's very rare, and now, okay, here come the objections, but there's 7 billion people on the planet. Out of those 7 billion, how many are actually practicing Dharma? Very few. I mean, not Buddhist, but actually practicing Dharma. There can be Christian Dharma, you know, other Dharmas, but how many are really putting it into practice? So we've gained this rare opportunity by practicing certain practices, doing certain things. We've got this life, but we don't know how long it's going to last, and we need to gain some benefit from it. We want to get something from it. So it says in the text, if we don't get something from it in this life, it's like a person who has gold and jewels, but you don't recognize their value, and then you continue to live in poverty. And I remember Lama Zopa talking about very poor people, and right underneath the bed, buried in the ground, was some gold, but you don't realize the value of the gold, or you don't realize it's there. So you need to study this part of the Lam Rim in order, and meditate on it in order to realize you're very fortunate. Because if you don't, you think, well, 7 billion. What's the problem? You know, there's many, many lives available when I die. That's one thing. The other example I remember being given years ago was a beggar behind a restaurant looking for a piece of pizza to eat because the beggar's really hungry, and goes behind an Italian restaurant and, you know, the cold noodles and the floppy pizza, and finds a great big rock, which is a diamond, incredible value, throws it away because doesn't recognize the value of it. So what we're being taught here is that you may not recognize the value because you don't know. From a Dharma perspective, you don't know. But you need to get to know so that every day you wake up and think, wow, how incredible, I've woken up, I'm alive with a precious human rebirth. And what am I going to do with it today? And then that goes on day after day after day. Bodhicitta. I want to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. In order to do that, I must become enlightened. So bodhicitta, the reason for this teaching, the reason for living, the reason for getting out of bed, serving sentient beings, and wanting to benefit them with that service. So where are we? The perfect human rebirth is a state of leisure and fortune, and it comes about through the aggregation of 18 circumstances. You're free of 8 restrictive states, which is leisure. And fortune is the possession of 10 endowments. It's extremely difficult to gather these 18 circumstances simultaneously, what you're free of and what you have. But in this life, we have. We've done it. And so, you need to pat yourself on the back and say, wow, well done. But on the other hand, time is passing and we need to do something useful with it. In the letter to a friend, Nagarjuna said, "He who uses a gold vessel embellished with jewels to hold filthy vomit is stupid. Even more stupid is the one who, though born as a human, engages in evil deeds." Well, people, who has not? Evil deeds sounds pretty heavy, doesn't it? But who hasn't done negative things in this life? So if we defend ourselves and say, well, that's other people, it's not me, I'm not evil. What Nagarjuna is saying is, you have something very precious, but why are you doing negative things with it? The 8 freedoms, again, Nagarjuna says, holding wrong views, being an animal, a hungry spirit, or birth in the hells, bereft of Buddha's teachings, born in outlying lands as a barbarian, mute, or idiot, or as a long-life god. These births are the 8 defects of having no leisure, being free of them by finding leisure, make effort to avert birth. So the 8 freedoms fall into 2 groups of 4. The 4 situations are being free from the non-human states, which are not conducive to Dharma practice. So the first one is freedom from birth in the hells. So, maybe this is very difficult to take, but anyway, we have to talk about it. If you don't believe in hells, as in when you die, you've developed a hellish state of mind, which you're going to experience. So in Buddhism, it doesn't talk about a place, a destination where you're going to go and you're going to experience hell in that place, and then you come out of that place. It's that you have a hellish state of mind, and there are others with a similar state of mind, and then you join together. And then that's what we would call a hell realm, because you're experiencing similar things together. So your experience of hellishness, being violent, hurting each other, etc., the experience would be there for all of you because you're experiencing a hellish mind. So some people like to think of a hell as a particular place, but in Buddhism, it's an experience of mind. So in the 3 lower realms, the hell realm in particular, there's no opportunity to practice Dharma because of the intense suffering. So if you think about how in the human realm, it's so difficult for us in the human realm to practice Dharma, how much more difficult is it within a hellish state of existence? There are no virtuous objects. So there's no stupas, statues, there's no gurus. So it's said in the hell realm, it's impossible to create positive karma. But you are using up negative karma. That's the good news. When that negative karma finishes, you're going to come out of the hell realm. But you can be in the hell realm for a long, 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 long time. It's not the same time frame as we have as humans. So if you imagine, I think maybe try this, maybe don't, because then if anything happens, you'll sue me. Thumbtack, isn't it? Are they called thumbtacks? This one. Put a thumbtack on the cushion, that you're sitting on, then sit on it so that it pierces you. That's why I say don't do it, because maybe you get tetanus or something, I don't know. So you're sitting on it. Now try to meditate. Or just a needle, a thin needle, stick it in you. Try to meditate. Your whole being is thinking about the pain and the suffering and how to remove that pain and suffering. So imagine the hell being who has much more pain and suffering than just this pain and suffering, our human pain and suffering. If we have even a bad headache, can't meditate. If you didn't sleep well in the night, you wake up in the morning and think, whoa, it feels terrible. I can hardly get out of bed. So that's the reality of the human life. But in the hell realm, many, 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 many times more magnified. But we're not in that hell realm. We're free of that hell realm. So like I said, at the moment, we're thinking of the freedom. Wow, I'm not there. Later, you use that same information to develop compassion. The second one is freedom from birth in the hungry spirit realm. The hungry spirit realm, people are very miserly. The people who have resources, but they're miserly. They don't want to share it. So those people at the time of death, because they're thinking miserly thoughts, then they create a subtle energy system, subtle body with a very thin throat, big stomach, can never get enough. So it's said they can search for 12 years to get a tiny piece of something, blessed by somebody. That's why in Dharma, in Buddhism, we bless food, we offer it to hungry ghosts and spirits and all this, because some of them just can't get food. And so there was a story I remember about, for 12 years, this father went out to look for food for the wife and the children. And he was searching. And in the end, there was a monk who spat a bit of sputum and blessed it. And the hungry ghost was able to get that, but after 12 years. So a hungry ghost could be next to water, but doesn't have the perception of water. You know this story about the water. You can have a glass of water like this. And so the hell being wouldn't see water. The hungry ghost might see pus or something disgusting, or not even see that. The animal might see water. The human would see water, and the Buddha would see nectar. So each being, because of their karmic perception, is seeing something different. The base, the water, is the same, but the perception is different because of the karma projecting onto the object. So the the hungry ghost can be next to food but can't see food. Can be next to water, can't see water to drink, can't utilize. And so that's the karma from being miserly. So again, not being able to meet the Dharma because this constant need to find something, because you've got this thin throat, big stomach. But you can see this in the human realm. Don't just think about ghosts floating around with thin throats and big stomachs. Think of people who are like that, who've never got enough, always wanting more. Rejoice in the good fortune of not being bound by a rebirth of such intense craving. Those people have incredible craving. the third one, freedom from birth in the animal realm. So in the text, it says they have deep ignorance. I know many animal lovers will really get upset about this. What they call ignorance here is not able to understand the Dharma. So it's not ignorance, I think, in the way that we use the word, maybe in the West, if we say ignorance, we mean something like really stupid, isn't it? And then people say, but my cat is really intelligent, or my dog is really intelligent. What it means in this context is you can't teach them the Dharma. You can't teach them how to prostrate, although some animals go like this, but I'm not quite sure what they're doing, whether it's a prostration or just stretching. Animals can be very clever, can be trained, can be taken around stupas and things like that, but actually don't have the same sort of brain that we do, where we can understand the Dharma. We can utilize the Dharma in order to help others. And in the wild, then animals, they live with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, because in the wild, it's that you're an animal and you're lunch. You're lunch for somebody, you're dinner for somebody. You know, so somebody's looking at you. If you're smaller and they're bigger, you're lunch or dinner or breakfast. If you're bigger, then somebody else's lunch, breakfast, dinner. But you have to kill in order to be able to eat. And we've had many discussions over the years about, is the karma as heavy if you're an animal as a human? So I think not, because I think you don't have that sort of thinking power of a human who thinks, I'm going to kill, whereas an animal is killing out of instinct. I don't think the karma would be as heavy, but it's still karma. There's still the karma of killing. You can't say there's no karma. So again, rejoicing that you're free from birth with the limitation of this extreme ignorance, the ignorance of not being able to listen to the Dharma and not put it into practice. So don't take it as, what can you say? Dogs, cats, birds, whatever. The other day I saw a man with a snake around his neck. These beings, the ignorance is they can't develop wisdom because they can't hear the Dharma. Don't send me loads of letters about this. The fourth one, freedom from birth as a long life God. So the long life gods, they have no discrimination. So some of them can be born in the formless realm. And then there's the gods of the desire realm. There's different gods depending on the mind and depending on what they've developed with their mind. So as a result of cultivating a concentration lacking discrimination, they have a slight discrimination of being born in, say, the formless realm. And at the end, a slight discrimination that they're about to die. And the rest of it, a very long life is spent in meditative absorption of non-discrimination. So it's said to be similar to a dreamless sleep. They're in a dreamless sleep, similar to just wasting time, passing time. And then in the desire realm, there's also gods, small g, and they have enjoyments which are exotic, absorbing. They have no concept of suffering, and so they can't grasp the first noble truth. When you say to them, first noble truth, suffering, they go, I'm not suffering. So I think, again, you can find people in this human realm who are constantly chasing after pleasure and thinking there is no suffering, like that. So even if a Buddha turned up and knocked on the door, and they opened the door and there's Shakyamuni Buddha, and he's, you know, I must tell you about Dharma, they'd say, forget it. You know, we're not interested. Their minds are filled with subtle agitation as they continue to indulge in more and more refined sense pleasures. They can pass actually millions of years, and huge accumulations of positive karma are used up, and wasted for no benefit. So again, you should rejoice that you're free of that distraction of such a rebirth. So of course, we have pleasurable activities, but if we're all the time using our positive karma for those pleasurable activities, then where's the difference between that God who lives a long, long time and is always chasing after pleasurable activities, and us wanting a new car, wanting a new this, wanting new, wanting, then it becomes similar. But in this life as a human, we have the ability to say, no, I'm going to have some pleasure. I'll go bowling, or what else would you do? Bowling, swimming, whatever, jogging. Yeah, you can do all these things for the body. You can look after the body, but don't make it the main focus of your whole life, because we eat, we have to sleep, we have to work for all of that. So, actually, when you look at the number of hours available for Dharma, it was worked out once. If you work 8 hours and then you go shopping and cooking and cleaning, there's another 2 hours a day. And then you want to watch your program on TV, and then you sleep for 8 hours. How much time is available for Dharma? It comes out at something like 15 minutes if you're lucky. So that's why this text is pushing, saying, you're free of this, you're free of this, you're free of this, so that you come up and think, wow, incredible. I'm free, but what am I using my freedom for? Like that. Number 5, freedom from being born in a remote and irreligious land. A place where there's no Dharma. No Dharma. Where would that be? I was thinking Canada, Dharma. America, United States, South America, Dharma, right? Iceland, Dharma. The Baltic states, Dharma. Europe, Dharma. Africa, maybe less Dharma, but Dharma people have been there, still go there. So, in the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, when this teaching was given, there were many remote and irreligious lands, in the sense of not understanding the Buddha Dharma and being able to avoid the negative and promote the positive. So we're not in that type of situation. Also, it's defined like this. There's a place where there's no Dharma, which is that they don't have 4 types of people: fully ordained monks, fully ordained nuns, novice monks, and novice nuns. So even though the Dharma may be there, do they have these 4 types of people? Then you start to understand there's less countries within all of those. We just said, oh yes, they've all got Dharma, but maybe there's a small Dharma center with 1 teacher, or it could be a monk or a nun. But if you look inside the country, do they have fully ordained monks, fully ordained nuns, etc.? Probably not in many countries. It's also said you have to have 4 of them. So 4 fully ordained nuns, 4 fully ordained monks, or the novice monks or nuns. When you have 4, then it's said that it's complete. The Dharma is complete, if you like. So we have the opportunity to learn meditation. We can develop faith in the 3 jewels. We're so fortunate because we have everything right now. But if we don't value it, then we're going to say, oh, I'll do it later. When I'm retired, I'll do it. And then you drop dead the day you retire. Or you retire and then you take up golf. And you think, or you take up bowling, and then that takes up all your time. So you can't keep saying, I'll do it later, because you don't know you're going to do it later. Now is the time to do it. Freedom from being born when the Buddha has not come. So there are times which are called dark eons. It's when the Buddhas don't teach. We're fortunate to be in a light eon, not as in a light bulb, but light, in which 1,000 Buddhas will come to our world and give teachings. So there are 1,000 predicted Buddhas. Shakyamuni Buddha was the last one. The next one is Maitreya. So we're very fortunate that we do have this 1,000 Buddhas. We haven't experienced many of them, and we will receive teachings. But there will be a time when there is no Dharma. So again, don't put the Dharma off, because you don't know when you come back how much time you've been out, and when you came back there was no Dharma. It's possible. Here's another one that tends to spark controversy: freedom from being born mentally deficient or mute. Mentally deficient or mute. So this is having impaired senses or mental faculties. So many people argue about the deaf and the blind, that they nowadays can experience the Dharma. And I think, yes, that's because of the compassion of those who are really concerned about those who are deaf or blind. The problem with being deaf is that you can't receive the oral transmissions. The blind, they can read Braille, and many texts have been put into Braille. And if they're only blind, they can hear the texts. But often people are blind and deaf. If they're just deaf, they may be able to read. So, I think it is something to be overcome and not an impossibility. But do we experience that right now ourselves? We're not, but others are. And we're free of it, if that's true. And if we're free of it, then again, we should make more effort, because we are free. And as I said, later, develop compassion for those who are mentally deficient, mute, deaf, whatever. Once, a long time ago, I worked in a school in Sydney for a short while, and it was for the deaf, blind, multi-handicapped children who, I tell you, they couldn't speak, they couldn't hear, but they were incredibly clever and would hide things in the classroom. And I mean, they were naughty. So, I developed great respect for these kids who were not just deaf, blind, but also multi-handicapped. And they put them into a flat where they had to cook themselves. So they had to cook, clean, iron, as part of the program to put them into society. It was incredible. So don't underestimate them, but on the other hand, rejoice in what you have. If you have all your senses intact, we may never think about it, having hearing, until you lose your hearing. What? As you get older and your glasses get thicker and thicker, then you remember back and you rejoice in your good eyesight, your good ears. Not having a cough. Freedom from holding wrong views is number 8. It's the worst state of non-freedom, which is to hold wrong views. The worst state. It means to deny the 3 jewels, past and future lives, karma, the relationship between the negative causal action and the resultant suffering. This is the cause of all other states lacking leisure and endowments. They will ensure that you remain separate from the Dharma for many rebirths in future. So the problem with this wrong views is when people hear teachings about karma, they say, well, I don't believe it. It doesn't work for me. I'm not going to be affected by karma. The 3 jewels, what can benefit you? They deny that. So this is the problem when we're talking about wrong views. It's only within the Dharma, within the Buddha Dharma. We're not talking about other religions. We're not talking about their belief systems. We're only talking about within Buddha Dharma, what stops you from experiencing enlightenment. Now the 10 endowments. A Sangha from the Hearer's Grounds text says, born human in a central land with complete sense faculties, not having committed the extreme actions, faith in the objects, when Buddha has appeared and taught the Dharma remains and is followed, and people have love for each other, for others. So we have 5 endowments. Being born, the first one is being born as a human being. Human form, you can attain liberation and enlightenment. So that's clear, right? Second, being born in a central land. It's the country that has the 4 types of people that I mentioned before. If you are in one of those central lands, you should rejoice and look after those monks and nuns, because not every country has them. We don't have so many Western monks and nuns right now. Whether we will in future, I don't know. But right now, we do have some, and it's possible to meet the Dharma. We can listen to the teachings. But, traditionally over the last, 20, 30 years, what we've seen is it's extremely difficult for Western monks and nuns to survive in the West and to stay as monks and nuns. So many disrobe, many give up. And so if you do have them in your country, please pay attention. This is, can I say privilege? It's a privilege to have them in your country, not they're parasites. Why don't they work like that? They are working. They're taking care of for the benefit of all sentient beings. I'm not talking about me. Not interested. But I'm talking about, many countries I know, there are monks and nuns really struggling, really having a difficult time. Number 3, being born with complete sense organs. You're capable of listening to the Dharma. You can think about it. You're able to meditate. That's number 3. 4, not having created the 5 extreme negative karmas. We talked about this before. So if you don't know the 5 heinous actions or heinous actions, you can look that up. How do you know you haven't done it? Because if you had, you probably wouldn't be here. You'd be roasting somewhere. Number 5, having faith in the objects. So that refers to the 3 baskets of teachings. Shakyamuni Buddha gave 84,000 teachings, and they're divided into Vinaya, which is rules, vows to live by, Sutra, the actual words of the Buddha, and Abhidharma. So faith in them is the source of all mundane and supermundane qualities. So if you have faith in the teachings, then this is one of the endowments. And then there's different types of faith. I remember Geshe Wangchen telling me once, Tibetans have a sort of blind faith, if you like, because they grow up with Dharma. And so they really believe in Shakyamuni Buddha and Tara and the power of mantras and rebirth and karma and all the rest of it. But when a different religion comes to Tibet and talks to them about a different religion, then often they sort of switch over to a different religion and can switch back again because they have blind faith. So it has to be faith based on reason, not just blind faith. Then, the last 3 lines of a Sangha's verse, when Buddha has appeared and taught the Dharma remains and is followed, and people have love for others. Number 1 is being born when the Buddha has appeared. We have the opportunity to meet the Buddha. We don't really, because, face to face, we don't meet the Buddha, but it's said that because of the gurus still being around, this one, number 1, is being fulfilled. Even though you don't see the Buddha, you see the guru. Number 2, the Buddha or his hearers give Dharma teachings. Buddhas don't always give teachings. So Shakyamuni Buddha didn't teach. How long did he wait? 6 weeks. I think 6 weeks, sitting in Bodh Gaya. Who will I teach? Who's got the merit? Who's got the karma to be taught? Thinking, what to teach, how to teach. So there could be a Buddha, but they remain silent. There was that boy in Nepal, wasn't it? Remember this? Used to call him the little Buddha. And he just sat under trees and nobody ever saw him eat or drink for years. There was a BBC documentary on him. I don't know where he is now, whether he's disappeared or whatever. But they said in Nepal that he was little Buddha, now a big Buddha because he's grown. But he never used to speak. Then I think when he was much older, maybe every now and again he used to give a little bit of advice. So it could be like that. You know, you can look at somebody and revere them and think, wow, incredible. They don't eat, they don't sleep, amazing, but they don't give any teaching. So you don't know how to become like them. The Dharma remains is number 3. The teachings are available from the Buddha or his hero disciples, and there are people who are gaining realizations by practicing them. We still have very inspirational Dharma practitioners, so we're very fortunate. Number 4, there are followers of the Dharma. You have the example of the disciples. The Sangha, you know, I keep saying, the Sangha are very important because when you talk to the Sangha, you know, this meditation is so difficult. And they say, yeah, well, it was difficult for me too. Dharma's difficult, you know, because we come from non-Dharma into Dharma, and we think that Dharma's going to fix all the temporary problems, going to give us incredible success and pleasure. And I'm not sure in the beginning if we always think about enlightenment, but what we really want is more chocolate, more of the good stuff, you know? And then after a while, we start to realize, well, it's not just about this life, it's about lives. And then we start to get challenged. And then we need the Sangha to put it in context to help us. Number 5, people have love for each other or for others. There are people of a loving nature who care for and help support the practitioners of Dharma by providing the necessary conditions. Think of all the retreat centers, you know. I know some of them charge a lot and maybe make some money, but most of them, they don't. You know, they're sort of financially on the edge. We've been to some, I've been to some incredible centers all around the world, but ones that stand out, Chandrakirti in New Zealand and Mahamudra in New Zealand, they're not rich centers, and the people who work there are volunteers and work very hard. So, you know, they're a very good example of a place where they really want to help others. And there's many, many others apart from that, but just, you know, close to Australia, I can think of that. And not having tons of money, you know, so I think often people think of these retreat centers as sort of very rich places and why are they charging? But in actual fact, they have to charge to try and cover all the costs of the place. So we do have the conditions to be able to do retreat. We do have the conditions for teachers to be able to go to those places and teach. We're very fortunate. But in the future, maybe it won't exist. Maybe you'll go to Mahamudra Center on the North Island of New Zealand, and you'll see a Buddha statue, you know, like I have here, Buddha statue and some text, and you think, what's all this about? You know, what was this? And people say, oh, a long time ago, blah, 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 you know. It's like, it becomes history. It loses its relevance to our life now. So now, we need to contemplate the temporary value. What's the temporary value? And what's the ultimate value of leisure and fortune? So the temporary value of higher rebirth, good conditions of a human rebirth, what can we get out of it? Why should we be rejoicing and thinking, wow, incredible, so amazing? Because we have the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments, we can practice pure morality, which is the main cause of higher rebirth. We have choice. By understanding karma, we're able to create the causes for whatever results we may wish. So you can practice generosity, which becomes the cause to become wealthy in future. The practice of patience creates the karma to become beautiful. I think that I must have practiced a lot of patience in my time. Anyway, respect is the cause of a high position. So you may think, well, what do I want all that for? Because if you have wealth, if you have high position, if you become famous, then you can help many, many people. You think about, I really like Keanu Reeves. Lillian doesn't even know who he is. Anyway, poor woman. She's never even heard of, what's that film called that he was in, Lillian? Anyway, such a nice guy, seems to be very humble, but loads of money, rich and famous, people listen to him, and he uses his money to be a benefit. I read somewhere that he'd been funding a charity for years and nobody knew about it. You know, it was all secret. That's the sort of person you'd like to come back as, because instead of the frustration of what can I do, you have the Dharma and you have all the abilities to put the Dharma into practice in order to benefit others. When Chandrakirti, engaging in the middle way, when acting freely and living agreeably, if one does not restrain, when falling into the abyss and under the control of others, how will one arise from that in future? So we have tremendous freedom to act as we wish, and we're living in a very fortunate situation. But if we go into the lower rebirth, we're going to spend a long, long time purifying and then coming out. As I said, when we come out of that lower rebirth, Dharma may not exist anymore. How do we know how long it takes? So be careful about using this fortunate birth to create, or no, not to create. The word I'm looking for is not to, the sense, not to use this present birth, this present fortunate situation, only to give you happiness right now. Be careful, because Dharma is not about being happy right now. It's about having fortunate lives in the future. Not future this life, future lives. And then you have to think, so which is greater, this life or many future lives? Of course, the future lives. So don't foolishly waste it. You know, it's like you take your credit card and you go to the Karma Bank and I want a new this and I want another this and I want another this. And then one day the machine swallows the card. Happened to me once in Italy. I forgot my PIN thing and the machine swallowed it and then chewed it up, just, you know, like this. Think, what have I done? So the reason for it is you used it all up for temporary pleasure instead of long-term happiness. So short-term pain, long-term gain. The ultimate value of leisure and fortune is that with the 5 aggregates of such a rebirth, you're able to attain the ultimate goals of liberation and enlightenment, the ultimate value. You have a basis on which to progress on the path of cessation through the bodhisattva levels to ultimate enlightenment. Your aggregates are the same aggregates as Lama Tsongkhapa, Gampopa, Nagarjuna. You have the same aggregates. We all have the same aggregates. What's the difference? Mind. The difference is mind. What we've done with our minds. So you've got an incredible being like Milarepa, who short-term pain in this life became a Buddha. But he could have been sitting on the mountain thinking, oh, nettle soup every single day. Oh, it's too much. You know, and you start lusting after nettle momos. If only I could have a momo, you know, or being alone all the time. Maybe down there they're having a good time. And so You know, your mind could be thinking like this. You're in a perfect situation to become enlightened, but you're only thinking about what you're missing out on. Yes, you're going to miss out on things. Many people have told me they go into the Dharma and then people say, come out to a party on Saturday. Oh no, I'm meditating. Well, are you crazy? Or I'm doing a puja. What? You know, a friend of mine, Tenzin, when we were in Rishikesh, he used to get up, I think it was something like 3 or 4 in the morning to take teachings from Thubten Chodron, Venerable Thubten Chodron in America, because she was teaching in American time. So he was getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning. And I said to him, but you can just watch the recording. And he said, no, I want to watch live because then I feel I'm participating. So, you know, that type of attitude, that way of approaching the Dharma, you have faith, you have the energy for the Dharma, you have to think there's an ultimate value. Maybe this temporary pleasure has to be put to one side sometimes, but then the ultimate value is there. You're going to get to enlightenment. With this state of leisure and fortune, you can recognize suffering, you can practice renunciation, you can practice bodhicitta, the wisdom perceiving emptiness, the generation and completion stages of the Vajrayana. So you have everything that you need in order to become enlightened. So Shantideva says, having found such leisure, if I do not become acquainted with virtue, there is nothing more deceptive than this. There is nothing more foolish than this. Then there's value in every moment. One of Atisha's disciples, Dromtompa, who's a famous thought practitioner, Lojong practitioner, was fond of saying he was able to do 3 things at the same time. When cooking, he recited mantras and focused his mind on bodhicitta. Lama Zopa's mother also used to do the same thing. I heard that when she was up in Laudo, where it's potatoes with potatoes, then she used to make a lot of soup, and she'd be stirring the soup, and all day she recited Om Mani Padme Hum. We can do the same. If you recite 10 malas of Om Mani Padme Hum per day, you change the atmosphere, the environment around you into the one of compassion. So you can recite many mantras, your speech becomes blessed. So whatever you breathe on becomes blessed. Whoever hears your sound, hears blessed sound. And then when she died, when she passed away, I was there because I'd been asked to organize Kala Chakra in Sarnath. And so the mother came down from Laudo to meet His Holiness. And it seemed she knew she was going to pass away. And so they brought her down from Laudo. It's a long way from up in the mountains. And she lay down by the path, and His Holiness went past, and he stopped and he blessed her. And I don't know if it was that night or the next night, she passed away in a sleeping bag. And then the monks asked Lama Zopa, should we take her out the sleeping bag or burn her in the sleeping bag? Lama Zopa said, burn her in the sleeping bag. I thought, how practical, you know? So without fuss, you know. And then she was reborn as a boy who became a monk and a Rinpoche. Unfortunately, fell out of a tree and died. So that's life, isn't it? So yeah, value in every instant. Without going on about it too much, what value are you putting into your life from this first instant in the morning when you wake up? I've said to you many times, the greatest value is bodhicitta. So if when you wake up, you think, I'm waking up with bodhicitta. I'm getting out of bed with bodhicitta. I'm making a cup of tea or coffee with bodhicitta. I'm drinking with bodhicitta. If you keep thinking like that, thinking, may I liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. If I'm drinking, then may others have water or liquids to drink. If I'm eating, may others have food to eat, like that. So Aryasura says, like a trader gone to an island of jewels, returning home empty-handed, without the paths of the 10 virtues, you will not obtain it again in future. So this is to say to you, you need to practice the 10 virtues and avoid the 10 non-virtues. You have a very precious opportunity. It's like going to an island which has masses of jewels, and you turn around and you go home, and you didn't take one jewel. You have the jewel, but now what are you going to do with it? I'm not going to go on too much more. There are causes for higher rebirth. So in the text it's saying how many people have to kill, steal, lie, use harsh speech, and so on in their work. Never mind in lower rebirths, having to kill to just sustain their existence. But in this life, in human life, how many human beings have to kill? So many do. Stealing, many do. Many lie, cheating, etc. So refrain, if you can, from the 10 non-virtues: killing, stealing, lying, covetousness. Covetousness is seeing something that somebody else has and wanting it. It's not stealing, but it can lead to the act of stealing. This mind that says, I want, I want, I want. Ill will, thinking something that if somebody else heard, you'd be really embarrassed, you know. So even the boss is not such a nice person, but you think, oh, if I could get hold of them, you know, sort of thinking really negative thoughts about them. Even though you don't say it, thought is still a negative karma. So examine the 10 non-virtues. And we talked about this in How to Meditate, didn't we? What are the 10 non-virtues? What are the 10 virtues? So you're not just avoiding killing, but you're promoting the saving of lives and for others to have a long life. Stealing, not just avoiding stealing, but being generous with whatever you have, but also protecting others' possessions. Lying, then using your words to uplift others, to be truthful. But, you know, again, you have to be careful with the truth. It's your truth, not always the truth. So this is tricky. It's said that from even a single moment of negativity, this is Shantideva, you remain for eons in the hell without respite. What need is there to speculate about attaining higher realms with sins accumulated from cyclic existence without beginning? So Shantideva is saying, we can't imagine how many negativities we've accumulated. So if the next life is going to be a great suffering life, at least you still have time in this life to avoid the negativities, promote the positive, and I would say in brackets, purify. You still have time. So in other words, if even a moment's negativity can cause rebirth for a long, long time in a suffering realm, how can you expect to gain a higher rebirth after having created negative karma for beginningless lifetimes? The birth of leisure and fortune is so rare because its causes, the practice of ethics, coupled with the practice of the 6 perfections and aspirational prayers, is rare. You need to practice the 6 perfections. You need to have aspirational prayers that you want to become human. And you need to have ethics, which means avoiding the 10 non-virtues, practicing the 10 virtues, etc. If you have vows, then you keep your vows. There's an analogy of every 100 years, this golden yoke, but then somebody turned it into a tire of a car to make a modern example, but it's a golden tire, floats to the surface of the ocean, and a blind sea turtle comes up from the depths of the ocean and puts its head through the car tire or the yoke is an example of how difficult it would be for that being to find the yoke, the tire, and how difficult it would be to put its head through. That's how difficult it is to get human rebirth. Excuse me. Contemplate the following 4 points to generate a genuine wish to extract the essence of leisure and fortune. Number 1, you need to practice Dharma because all sentient beings want happiness and not suffering. Eliminating suffering and attaining happiness depend entirely on the practice of Dharma. 2, you have the capability to practice Dharma because you have the external conditions of a perfect guru and the internal conditions of leisure and fortune. 3, you must practice Dharma in this life because if you do not, leisure and fortune will not be attained again for many lifetimes. And 4, you must practice Dharma now because there is no certainty when you will die. Well, I think enough. So this part of the Lam Rim is introductory. You haven't even entered the Lam Rim. Did you realize that? Lillian? No, she didn't. She was basking in the glory of thinking she'd just entered the Lam Rim. Well, she hasn't. The doors are still closed. We start the Lam Rim with impermanence, lower realms, refuge, karma, etc. Then we have the medium scope meditations. Then we have the higher scope of meditations. So each person has a different mind stream. Each person needs to be taught the Dharma in a way that will have meaning to them. So they're either lower scope, medium scope, higher scope. So this person that we're addressing right now is all of us, in that we can all understand precious human rebirth. That we have this human body, we can see suffering around us, we can see problems around us, particularly during this time of the virus. But even without the virus, there were many, many problems existent. So I have this precious human rebirth, and what should I do with it? I don't know what to do, so what should I do? So the obvious answer is recognize your own suffering, want to overcome that suffering, and want to overcome the suffering of others, help them with their suffering. In order to do that, you need great energy, great aspiration to want to use this precious human rebirth for a positive purpose. So this part, this introduction, is about giving you that energy to lift you up when you're thinking, oh, life, you know. I mean, I have a friend in Victoria who said, can't go out, can't do anything, can't meet people. And so for people who are gregarious, they really want to go out and meet people so they can get depressed. So when you wake up and you think, life, or it's raining and it's gray and it's cold, you think, life, you have to wake up with this feeling of precious human rebirth. It's the antidote to depression. And many people now have depression, so they needed to be lifted out of their depression. And this is the part of the text that will do that. So I wanted to meditate. I think we can give it a little bit of time. I want to meditate on how it would be not to be a human. So I want you to think of an animal or an insect that you don't want to be. Usually we give the example of snake. My mother, being Irish, was terrified of snakes. Terrified. I don't think in Ireland there's any snakes at all. I think they don't exist, I think. But she had this thing about snakes. So if I said to a snake, she'd jump a meter back or 10 meters back. So if you've got a sort of fear animal, you know, tarantula, spider, maybe if the fear is too much, you can't do this meditation. You know, if I say snake and you go, oh, you're not going to be able to do the meditation. So something that you wouldn't like to be reborn as, but not too extreme. So in the meditation, we're going to go from where we are now as humans, and we're going to completely go to being the snake, the tarantula, whatever it is. And I want you to really feel it. So snake is a very good example. Spider is a good example, because I know many people terrified of spiders. So that you're within that spider body, you're within that snake body, and then a human being sees you and completely freaks out. They can't look at you, they can't be anywhere near you, they want to run away from you. Even though they're bigger and look stronger, they have a terror of you. And you're just out looking for something to eat, having a good time, basking in the sun, or the spider in the corner of the room, you know, just having a nice time. And there's this crazy person, you know, frothing at the mouth, trying to find something to hit the spider with. Think like that. Don't think, oh, how nice it would be to be a bird flying in the sky, la, la, la. You know, don't romanticize it. But think about the rebirth that must be a real suffering. And then we're going to come back into our human rebirth and then experience the difference between the two. So we'll try to do that. So now, taking 3 deep breaths, breathing all the way down into the abdomen, breathing in peace, and breathing out thoughts. Focusing on the sensation of the breath as you breathe in and out through the nostrils. Placing all your attention on the sensation of the breath. Becoming aware of your body, the aggregates, the human mind, human brain that can cognize, that has the ability to change, having the freedom to do what we want, to think what we want. Having all the qualities of a human, able to achieve enlightenment in this very lifetime. So you think of all the benefits that you have as a human being. Every time you think of a benefit, you think, how fortunate I am. Healthy body, how fortunate I am. Good mind, how fortunate I am. Good hearing, how fortunate I am. Like that. Keep rejoicing in your good fortune of having all those benefits. So in your mind's eye, you can see yourself sitting on the cushion or in the chair, doing this meditation. And then you visualize in front of you your fear animal or insect. And immediately you become that animal or insect, full of fear and anxiety, but also with the limitations of having an animal or insect brain, animal or insect body, being totally limited by the aggregates. So before, as a human, you could feel all the benefits, but now you feel the limitations. And not only that, because of your karmic appearance, whoever sees you may be afraid of you, may want to kill you because of your appearance. That's what you have to live with day after day after day. So really be inside that body that's not your body, your meditational animal body or insect body. Be inside that body and really try to feel the limitations of that body and that mind. Maybe you can hear mantras. You could go into a temple. There's pujas going on. You can't participate. Everybody starts screaming, running for the door because you're a snake coming into the puja. You just want to be happy and not to experience suffering. But you don't know how to go about being happy. You don't know how to avoid suffering. And even if somebody talks to you, tells you about the Dharma, you can't understand. You depend on humans who have compassion for you to accumulate merit. So stay in that body, that difficult situation for another couple of minutes. And instantaneously, you come back into your human body. Feel the difference between the animal or the insect and being a human, with your senses intact, human mind, able to cognize, able to study the Dharma, able to practice virtue and avoid non-virtue, able to change the delusions, the anger, the jealousy, the hatred. You're able to apply antidotes so that you can reduce those negativities. So many good things that you can do with this human life compared to the other life. So now you're back in your body. You rejoice and think how wonderful it is that in the past, in my previous lives, I created all the causes and conditions to experience this life. How special this life is. But I must make a determination not to be lazy, not to procrastinate, and to use this human rebirth for the benefit of all sentient beings who are all suffering and all who want happiness. The ultimate benefit for all sentient beings is for you to become enlightened. So make a determination that from now on, every time you wake up, you'll have that beneficial thought of helping others, serving others, helping others. But particularly, you yourself will work on your enlightenment project. Benefit for yourself and benefit for others. And then slowly bringing your awareness back to the room you're sitting in, the cushion you're sitting on, the meditation you've just been doing. In your own time, please finish your meditation. So there you have it. We finished the teaching for today. So my request to you is, please meditate on Precious Human Rebirth, similar to what I just did now, and also the 18 qualities, freedoms and endowments. Please meditate on those. So you've got until next Sunday. Spend some time on the qualities. Spend some time on, you can go from this human rebirth into a snake and then come back and think, well, what's the difference? There's a huge difference. You can't compare being a snake to being a human or being a dog to being a human. So you go out and then you come back and then you think, wow, incredible. I'm so fortunate. But if you look at a dog, many people say, oh, I'd like to be a dog. I want to be a dolphin. I want to be a bird. Think of the problems of it, not think of the romantic idea of it, In that way, you get this strong feeling about being human and developing the causes for it to happen again. Instead of thinking, oh, being a human is so boring. Because there's no chocolate in the shops. Something like that. Anyway, please do meditate on it so that we have realizations, and then you will all become Buddhas, and then you can all come back and help me because I'll still be here. So then we're going to dedicate. This is page 22, if you have a page 22, but it'll be on the screen through the kindness of Fionn. First two verses in Tibetan. Gewa di nyo dudag lama sangye drov gyorne drowa chikyang malupa de sala go parshok jancho sencho rimbache ma ke panam ke gyochik ke panyam pa me payang gonne gondu balbar shok Shantideva. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain a notion of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Gang re wei ko wei jingam dia pandan dewa malu jung wei ne chin rei ziguan tenzing yatso yi shape site badu tengyo chik. May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings, dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds, always increase. You want him?
Wisdom, light of true compassion, source of Tara's love maternal, Lozan's doctor and perfect holder, we request your life eternal. Teacher, father, mother, guru, we entreat you live forever, guiding all to liberation, perfecting our minds forever, with your always skillful guidance and profound compassionate ways, shining Tara's light eternal, guiding to her Tathagata mind. Om Guru Vajradhara Sumati Vijaya Sarva Siddhi Hum. Om Tare Tutare Chure Guru Sumati Vijaya Ayo Puni Janana Pushtim Kuruye Soha.
Thank you all very much. And Tashi Delay and Sheshe and whatever else. And please do your homework. And I will see you next Sunday, same time, same place. Au revoir.
Thank you, teacher.
Welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Au revoir, bonne journée.
Bonjour. Comment allez-vous?
Très bien, et vous? Bonne journée. Merci beaucoup, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Teacher, may you be in healing hands for your treatment.
Oh, thank you. Whatever treatment that may be.
Facial treatment.
I see. And not that I need it. Okay.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
You.